Hey everybody, what's going on? We are here with a timeless reading. Welcome. The first card that we have out is Four of Pentacles. And Knight of Cups. When we have Four of Pentacles, it is generally connected with like holding on to something or trying to keep something the same, or like maybe stabilizing something, or if it's stable, like wanting to keep it that way. But because it is connected with Knight of Cups, this can be like something that's actually being withheld right now, or something that was being withheld. Because maybe there is going to be some type of movement now. There could have been a, like maybe holding something because it wasn't ready. And then there can be the sort of movement that happens there. But if this is going to be happening, this can mean that there's some type of like, there can be a little bit of a loosening here if this is to happen. Because if Four of Pentacles is staying in that position, it can mean that a movement is going to be withheld. So instead of doing that, or it can be like a message is going to be withheld. But then having that Knight of Cups, I feel like there's a surge wanting to move forward. Maybe too, this is like you want to do something, but you're holding yourself back for right now. Why would this be? Why Four of Pentacles? Temperance, it's not time. Okay. So this feels like rather than charging ahead, there may be something that you want to do, but you're actually going to wait because you feel like it's actually better to do that. It feels like sort of like developing some type of plan can be helpful. The reason that I'm seeing be connected with this is it feels like there's still something that you are learning about, still something that you are opening up to. So as much as there can be a part of you that's like, I want to make this move now, I feel like Four of Pentacles is actually what's being encouraged, which is wait on this. Don't make this move yet. It feels like it's not time. That doesn't mean it's not going to be time, but it feels like more information needs to be gathered because I'm also seeing Page of Swords here too. So this can mean like, before I say this thing or before I take this step, I'm actually going to stop. I'm going to, it feels like there's something that needs to be found out or reviewed that's connected with what would entail and maybe what's motivating taking this step. Or like, let's say for example, you wanted to say something. It feels like paying attention to what that is that you want to say prior to doing that. And I'm also seeing Six of Pentacles be here. So this can be making sure that before you do this, it's sort of aligned with what you need it to be aligned with before taking this step. This feels like a very conservative approach that's being suggested here. But the reason why one would be doing this is to ensure that once a move is made, that things play out, I think like in a more desirable way, which may not necessarily be the case if there's just action immediately without this forethought happening. Yeah, waiting. I am seeing King of Swords here. This can be holding back on having a conversation as well. You may want to make a move, but at the same time, or you can feel like something within you is saying, yeah, step that way. But at the same time, it feels like there's some type of pressure, or there are other things going on that maybe it's not the best time is what this feels like, because we have Ten of Wands here. It feels like if you were to do this now, it could feel like a little bit rushed. And it could also feel like it puts a little bit too much on your plate. There's something about a relationship that's coming up too. Okay. I'm getting a very clear example of this. Just keep in mind, an example is to sort of understand the template of how the energy is working. So this doesn't need to be your exact situation. It's just to kind of like give an easier understanding of how the energy is working. This feels like one of those times when, let's say that you are connecting with somebody and emotionally you're feeling really connected with them, and you may want to let them know how it is that you're feeling. You know, sort of when we become moved by something emotionally and you get really inspired to say something before you sort of have all of the information. So it can be somebody where you're like, I want you to be in my life forever, or I want this to happen, or I want that to happen. And then sometimes we can say those things, and then you get to a point where you realize maybe something isn't as compatible as you thought. So it feels like there's something going on here. And I'm not even saying that that's the case here. This just feels like there may be something emotionally going on that you want to do, that you feel moved to do. And where I'm seeing the air and the pentacles energy be, it's like, hold on, like take note of what it is that you want to communicate and what it is that you want to say. Keep that sort of like in your head before doing something and saying something and moving forward. And then you need to sort of observe what's taking place in the environment. And it feels like in the relationship with this person, see what's lining up, see if that sort of aligns with where you're going with things, with what you're thinking. And then you're going to be able to see if there's a compatibility there. It feels like you may want to make some sort of statement or like put something out there before you've gathered all of the information sort of needed. And then like what can happen if there's not sort of a like discernment being used right now. What can happen is that you may say something and then you realize like, oh, I didn't have all the information. I made that promise or I said that thing and now I'm in a bit of a pickle. And this feels like before doing that, because this, like, let's say this is a work situation for some of you. Maybe you're connecting with somebody and you're like, wow, I really want to work with this person and I really think that we would collaborate well. And maybe you find out information that's going to really support that. Or maybe you learn something and you're like, wow, I wasn't seeing that before. And that kind of like changes my perspective a bit here. And I don't know if that would actually work. So it feels like don't jump into this before you have the information, but from a place where you can feel excited or something's going on emotionally where you feel like you're connecting, that part of you may want to move forward, but it feels like it feels like this will bring unnecessary stress into the environment, and it feels like into the dynamic with you and this person. It feels like it will bring up a conversation that may be like a little bit too much, maybe for the dynamic as it is currently. Maybe this is also something really heavy that one wants to bring into this, and it's just like not appropriate to do that at this time. So this does feel like it's actually better to be holding this back a bit. That's not to say it's never going to be released. It feels more so like, it feels like there's just other stuff that's meant to be tended to, and this will bring unnecessary density. It just feels like it will, if there's a like breach right now, it will just bring too much into this, when there still is need to observe before making this move. The move that you want to make is going to give you information, so pay attention to that, sort of the context of that, what that would be carrying with it, and then use it to observe what's playing out within the dynamic. When I see Four of Pentacles and I see 10 of Wands, this immediately feels like there can be really a without being so aware, there can be a tendency to really squeeze things, to really hold things tightly, to really like want to control. And then that can bring up unnecessary stress into the situation, because this feels like maybe wanting to very heavy-handedly guide the direction of things without just, rather than observing and seeing what's being laid out. This feels like trying to maneuver things and maybe have control over stuff that you're not meant to be moving that around, and it's going to bring unnecessary stuff when really you're meant to be paying attention. So this feels like there's actually a tuning in that's needed. There's actually a listening that's needed. There's actually an observing that's needed here. And to look at everything and say, like, what is this telling me? Where's the direction going? Rather than manipulating it the way that you want to. I really do get the sense that this comes from a place of like wanting to control the way that things are going, but then being like, feeling like the stress that comes with that of trying to control something that you're not meant to be trying to control. And then it sort of cuts off that part of you that's going to be tuning in, that's going to be listening and saying like, show me what's going on. This feels like I'm going to tell the situation what it is and move it around. And it's like, this is a relationship dynamic. So this is something that there are going to be natural springs that sort of come up that give you context for what's going on here. But you can choose to ignore that and say, nope, I want this to happen. I want it to happen like this and like that. And then you feel like you're sort of going against the grain here. You feel like you're sort of swimming upstream. And it feels like you're not really listening to what wants to be shown to you, if only there will be a quieting and a tuning in and an observing of things to really see what the best avenue is for things to sort of go in. Where this can come from is like wanting things to go a particular way. It can be like, I want it to go my way. I want it to be like this. I want us to be like that. And then all of that pressure that comes from this being something that you're not meant to have a hand in it like that. But it can feel difficult to do that because we like to move things around in the way that we want to. Like, we don't always want to listen to the way that the energy is going. And who's to say, like, maybe this will go exactly as you want. Or maybe it'll be even better than that. Or maybe you'll see something that you weren't expecting to see. But this feels like, regardless, needing to sort of take a little bit of a back seat only to observe what's going on, rather than to project what you want onto this in a way that feels like it doesn't allow for the fluidity of direction that this would go in. And then you can feel like you're off track, you can feel like you're lost, and you can feel out of rhythm with this. I'm seeing the Ace of Cups on the bottom of the deck, and so I feel very much like this is something that can foster a sense of connection within your life. Not only like with this person, but this can also be something where you feel more connected with yourself. But if you're fighting the rhythm of this, saying like, I want it to be like this, I want it to be like that, and there's this rigidity mentally, it feels like it doesn't allow things to sort of flow in the way that they're meant to. Because this feels actually like wanting to come through and communicate things that would emphasize you having a sense of control over the direction of things. This is not to say you don't have preferences, but this is meant to say trying to control things that are outside of your spectrum of what is appropriate for you to be directing versus what is not. And that if that's sort of the move that's being made, that's when it introduces this feeling of being out of touch and out of flow with things. But this can be something that feels challenging because it takes some mental flexibility here. So there can be a growing and expanding and allowing things to turn when it's time to turn. It feels like there is a divine wisdom within this, that things will follow the path that it's meant to go down within the relationship dynamic. And you may be trying to grab a wheel that you're not meant to be grabbing. And you'll know this because there will be a feeling of frustration. You know this because there will be a feeling of like, I'm doing this stuff, but then I'm feeling like this is all a bit too much, or this is becoming overwhelming, or like, I actually don't totally know how to steer this. And then you're driving off in the grass in the middle of the forest and you're completely lost and off track. When if you would have just let this thing automatically steer where it's supposed to go, it will keep you on track the whole time. But there's a need to allow it to take you where it's going to take you. So I really do feel like this actually comes back to, like, if you're gonna ride this ride, you need to let it be on that type of autopilot and see where it's taking you, rather than being like, okay, I'm gonna be the one that's sort of driving this, and then you take it off track because you actually don't know where it's going. And I'm not seeing this be a like, this is gonna go where you want it to, or it's not going to. It just feels like, let it show you what's happening, and then you get to decide what you want. And it feels like communication can be part of this, asking questions, curiosity, and openness. Let it show you and then assess from what you're being shown, rather than assessing from this control. And then like, it's not going how I thought that it should right now in this moment. And then sort of losing it, and then you lose all scope of perspective. Let it show you if it aligns for you. Let it reveal itself to you. It feels like this is something that's sort of slowly coming out of the cocoon. And this Four of Pentacles feels like making all of these judgments about something and being like, it should come out of the cocoon like this, like that, like this thing over here. And like guessing what it's gonna look like before you're even seeing anything. And you really need to allow this to take its time to really bloom, and then you can see what the flower looks like. And when you listen to like things that can be coming up that maybe you have curiosities about or you're wondering about, ask those questions, communicate those things. Make gestures in that way. What are you feeling? What are you curious about? What do you want to learn? See if this works with that. Rather than like silently being like, it needs to go like this, it needs to go like that. Like, let it show itself to you. It's really going to be a much more profound, in tune, in flow experience, rather than, I think this comes from a place of like a need to control, or like having that impulse to control, to sort of give yourself this false sense of like being in control of what this is going to be and what's going to bloom. When what's going to bloom is what's going to bloom. Like, as much as you can like hold your breath and will it to be this and will it to be that, in this scenario, this is something that it's going to bloom how it's going to bloom. And so the wisest thing for you to do, and I think the most centered thing for you to do, is to watch it sort of as it's unfolding and to see from there. Instead of having to introduce unnecessary stress into the process, and then it's like, this doesn't feel fun anymore, this doesn't feel enjoyable, feels like there's not an openness anymore, and it almost feels like it kind of like ruins that experience of this part of the process. When this can be something that's fun, where you can be like, wow, that petal's coming out now, look at it, it looks like this, it looks like that, then like having conversations about it feels like something else. And even to this like wanting to control, it feels kind of like you making this so it's like an independent experience that like doesn't even connect with this person. It feels like you, not to say like we don't all have our individual experiences, but this feels like in this way of controlling things, it isolates your experience and keeps you actually distant from this person, where you're not even like involved here. It's like you can sit with this person and watch the flower of your relationship bloom and be like, wow, look at this part happening, look at that. And it can be very interactive versus like standing over there and trying to control the way that it blooms. And then it's like, where is even this other person in this process? So you can very much be like pushing the other person away by this behavior as well. And it's just something to be mindful of, that this doesn't have to be introduced, or if you are doing it, it can be something where you pull back and sort of go and sit with this person and watch what's happening. So it can be a unifying experience, and it can be a shared experience that you have with them, rather than this like independently in your head, not present with this person, and then also like suffering through this. Like it's not fun anymore. It's something that's like more anxiety producing, if anything. And then you feel like, where's that sense of connection? Why am I not feeling it? Because of this. So there's definitely a need to sort of allow here more than anything, and to allow this to go down the path that it's going to take with this person. Again, that doesn't mean you can't ask questions. It doesn't mean you can't be curious. It means to be open and to allow, rather than trying to control and restrict this. And then everything becomes very tight, and then you feel like you're off and things are disconnected then. Because also too, when you're having a relationship, is a mutual experience that you're having with another person, where you guys are now having a shared experience together, and that also fosters a sense of connection too. But if you're not like present with them as this is going on, and you're like, it should be like this, it should be like that, and you're like not even watching what's going on, you're taking away that shared experience that you could be having. And so ultimately it ends up being a disservice to you, and you don't even get that relationship experience. All right, my friends, we are going to leave the reading here. I would like to thank everyone for connecting. Thank you for tuning in. I'm sending everybody love, and I hope to catch you guys next time.